Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, depending on where you are. Today is October 4th, and this is another of our bi-weekly SIG Apps calls. My name is Machi, and I'll be your host today. We have two announcements. So next week, during KubeCon North America, we have a SIG Apps updates. I linked that one in the sketch, so if you're interested, feel free to listen, join, ask questions. Secondly, we are roughly 6 weeks-ish from the code freeze, which is November 16th. So make sure that all your PRs for Kubernetes are merged by that date. And honestly, it's better to get them merged sooner. So with that, I can pass over the voice to Jordan, who wants to talk about PDBs.
Good. I wanted to bring up a topic that came up around PDBs. It's a little unclear to me, at least, which SIGs I guess own this area. It feels sort of halfway in between SIG-Node and SIG Apps. I think originally PDB was designed to be like app facing because it makes use of things like selectors and interacts with controllers and dovetails nicely with something like running a deployment and having so many replicas and then not wanting all of the replicas backing your service to be like taken down at the same time. But then the control point where PDBs actually accomplish something is the eviction endpoint, which is primarily used for draining nodes. Other people can use that as well, but draining nodes is the main use case I'm aware of, and the one that most deployments, most Kubernetes deployments make use of for managing their node pools. Anyway, a question came up about how to treat not ready pods. Right now, under some circumstances, a not ready pod can be evicted regardless of the PDB. And then in other circumstances, the PDB is consulted and written to as part of evicting that not ready pod. And so it seems like there are two consumers who are expecting different things from this. One consumer is very app focused and saying, these pods already aren't ready. Why are you blocking me from deleting them? If they're not ready, they're already not being included in service endpoints. They're already disrupted. Why is PDB even involved? This is deadlocking me. So I linked to an open issue around that. Another consumer is explicitly using not readiness as a way to sort of get PDBs into the mix for preventing additional deletion of pods. And so in the SIG Apps thread, there's been some people chiming in saying, oh yeah, this is a thing we do. Like when one pod goes not ready, we intentionally mark the other pods as not ready so that PDBs will like prevent them from being drained. So at the very least, we have misunderstanding or like different expectations about what PDBs will do. There's discussion in the thread about how safe the use of PDBs is for the sort of going not ready and preventing removal use case. I would argue that it is not safe at all because it's racy depending on whether the controller has observed those pods not going ready or going not ready. So if, again, it seems like there's two use cases. One is sort of service app oriented and one is like backend data safety oriented. So anyway, that's the context. I guess I wanted to raise awareness of it for SIG Apps folks that hadn't seen the thread or weren't really paying attention to the implications, in my mind, there's two things we have to resolve. We need to resolve the deadlocks of PDBs for not ready pods, and we also have to resolve the unsafe use by people who are depending on it for data safety. And there was a big long discussion in SIG Node last week, which you can go look at the recording of. But the feedback there was, whatever we do to resolve these things, we shouldn't just make a change on a new version of Kubernetes. Like, people who are using it each of these ways need to be more explicit about what they're expecting from PDBs, which likely means some sort of indicator in the PDB object itself that says, here's what I want you to do with not ready pods. Like, if they're already not ready, cool, delete them. I'm already disrupted. Or if they're already not ready, like, consult the PDB, make the PDB, like, lock everything down, don't allow anything to change. So I wanted to bring that up. Yeah, I'll stop talking now. And yeah, any other thoughts or feedback or context that I missed?
So I was actually poking at the topic last week, but I refrained from commenting on the threat until today specifically. The problem of how you treat the not ready pods is even not in unison between controllers. So our stateful set controllers has a clear limitation pointed out that if during a rollout, a pod gets stuck for whatever reason, we will not proceed with a further rollout, which is kind of touching this area, because you might end up with a half-broken stateful set that you need to manually intervene to be able to unblock it. So that will be somewhat similar to the camp of, we want to maintain the old behavior of PDBs. In parallel, the deployment controllers will notice quickly that the pod is gone and will immediately create a new one. If for whatever reason, the old one somehow gets back, the new one will actually get deleted, not the old one. Although with the recent changes to the algorithm, how we scale down replica set, that might also include some additional parameters taken into place. So I guess that the conclusion that you pointed out, that this has to be configurable, it is probably valid, because we already have both cases available in the current controllers. Even though that there is a request for stateful sets to also do a similar step, to not care about data, but if a pod is not ready, delete it and proceed. And a lot of folks try to open issues fixing this, and until this point, I was rejecting those PRs. But I think we should probably just open stateful set in a similar fashion, that by adding an additional option, you could configure whether a stateful set could or could not proceed with a stuck pod. I don't know if anyone else have any additional thoughts or opinions.
So it's been a little while since I looked at this stuff, but I remember some of the issues here. I think one of the challenges has been that the disruption controller and the eviction logic has to have separate thresholds for what is, or for how to compute, or how to consider if a pod is healthy or not. So you can have pods that are too unhealthy to be considered to be counted by the controller, but, or how would it be? They're too unhealthy to be considered included when the PDB disruption controller counts the number of allowed disruptions, but there's also sort of, they're too healthy to be evicted by the eviction. So you can have these pods that are sort of somewhere in between, typically running but not ready, where they're not counted, but they're also can't be evicted, which gets into this weird spot, which I think the crash loop backup pods gets into, where you can have a PDB that says at least one needs to be ready, and you can have 12 unready pods, but you cannot evict any of them. I always felt that was something that was challenging to reconcile when we were discussing this.
Yeah. So I think there's agreement that we can't just like fix the bug and let not ready stuff be deleted in 123. Like it requires more like that would make the current risks that people are depending on PDBs unsafely, that would make it very unsafe for them. So that's not a good idea. I think we also can't just fix the bug to like make PDBs more deadlock prone for people who are currently using them successfully in cases where it's clearing out not ready pods. What that seems to imply is that there's work to be done to make this behavior configurable. And it's not clear to me who is motivated to do that work or who is planning to do that work. This kind of gets back to it not being super clear whether SIG node or SIG apps is responsible for this component. But I don't think the current state is one that should persist long term.
Jordan, to be clear, this is not going to be a temporary solution, because I read Clayton's response on the thread, and I think he's suggesting to make this to be working for some time so that both the parties are okay, and then move on to the first solution that you were proposing. Am I right? Or
I don't think so. I think his expectation was that the PDB consumer should be able to indicate which behavior they want. So
okay, so that's not something like a temporary thing that will be
no,
somewhere in the PDB object.
Right. So it'd be like a eviction policy, like, or not ready pod policy, or whatever, you know.
Okay.
So I heard, yeah, in the node call, I heard a lot of people disagreeing with like just making a change in one direction or the other, but I didn't hear a lot of people offering to sign up for the work to safely address both expectations which are currently not being addressed. So yeah, I wanted to raise it here and see if people here had additional options they saw, or like where SIG apps sees this compared to other apps efforts. From my perspective, this is like a GA feature and API, which has a couple really sharp edges. And all the conversation in the threads about people saying, oh no, we're using PDBs to like prevent our cluster from getting toasted, or this like data from getting lost, like that makes me really anxious when I hear people depending on this and knowing that it's not fit for that use currently.
So if I remember correctly, I think this feature was written by David Oppenheimer when he was in the SIG scheduling space. So at some point of time, scheduling was also owning this particular piece, if I remember correctly. I could be wrong.
Possibly. I haven't seen anyone from scheduling involved in it. I don't know if it was actually scheduling owning it or yeah, I mean the node eviction is the main consumer of it, and the selection mechanisms seem to integrate with like how replica sets and services select active pods, which is more apps oriented.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
even the preemption logic in scheduler, it also respects PDBs.
okay, that's good to know.
Yeah.
So would the next step here be Cap to suggest that proposes how we can address this with some kind of eviction or policy on this?
Probably
think-
so.
Yeah.
I guess it's best to point to all the issues and threats and on the mailing lists and recordings to both of the meetings from today and last week's SIG note, and start a cap and push this forward. Morten, would that be something you'd be interested in working on?
I'll have to check if it's something I think I can commit to. But interested, yes. Can I commit to that? I can't answer that right now.
I mean, it's definitely, given where we are in the release cycle, that will be something at soonest targeted for 124, because we would have to have a cap, even though there's an overall agreement. And I guess the only question is what the API will look like for this, although Jordan shortly described what it could potentially look like, I guess, as an alpha feature. And it will naturally have to go through the usual feature gate, alpha, beta, all the way to GA.
Yeah, just to clarify priority, it would be helpful to know from SIG Apps perspective, like what else is going on that is considered higher priority than this? If we're looking for someone to staff this, to my mind, a GA feature that people are using to protect against data loss, which we know has gaps or race issues that can allow that data loss, that seems like it should preempt other like new greenfield alpha type work. So I mean, if Morten is interested, that's great, but I would like to see a couple people working on this, ideally from a couple companies, so we don't miss 124 for the first part of a solution to this.
I can probably give a try and ask Ravi and Philip to staff this one and help Morten to push this through for 124. I think it's doable, and thankfully we have an overall agreement, so that's feasible from our perspective as well.
Okay, I will add an AI to the meeting and tag, I guess, Mache to track some of that down, and Morten to find out whether or not that's a possibility.
Okay.
I think timing-wise, like we're in good shape. If we start thinking about it now, we should be able to get something resolved so that we can hit the ground running in 124. But as everyone knows, Q4 goes really fast. So it's October 4th now, but you're going to blink and it's going to be January 4th. So
yeah, it's definitely worth to start writing this down as soon as possible, and then we can fiddle on the API bits and then the implementation, I guess, the PR link there is pretty much a good solution, but instead of doing this always, it would have to be conditional. So I guess the only major work is wrapping this thing in a feature gates, and you should be mostly ready. So it's not hard from the code standpoint.
Yeah, I think it'll mostly be agreement on, are these the two use cases, and is this, you know, I think the discussion on the current issue has shown there's a lot of people with a lot of different expectations. So the sooner we can say, here are the two use cases we see, we want to make these
Yeah.
safe, here's how we're going to do it. Is everybody happy? Like that would be good.
Yeah, definitely. Are there any other questions to Jordan? Okay, hearing none. Thank you very much, Jordan. Ravi, Philip, you're up next.
Yeah, we just want to give an update on this KEP that we started a couple of months ago. This is related to having statuses or consistent statuses for all the workload controllers. I don't know much why it is happening for you. Let me try opening this. If I have put a broken link there.
Well, interesting. Let me... Or our GitHub is down currently for whatever reason.
Okay.
Or somehow half of my internet is working and the other half is not, which is also possible. Interesting. Okay, go ahead and
yeah. So we initially got some feedback from Maciej. We have tried including some of the batch related workloads. So that should give, especially for the job, cron job at this point of time does not have a status. That's what we have mentioned in the KEP. But I believe we have tried addressing Maciej, your comments, and this is up for one more round of reviews.
okay. Does anyone have any questions for Ravi or Philip, or everyone just needs to have a look about this work that will be happening for over the next couple of releases, most likely? Okay, hearing none. Does anyone else have any last minute topic that they want to bring up with the group? Okay, hearing none. In that case, I'm going to close the call with this one. Thank you very much, all. And see you on KubeCon next week and on SIG Apps in 2 weeks. Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.